welcome to our 2020-21 New Family Orientation. We are so happy to have you here. It is our first ever virtual orientation, so a bit unusual for us and hopefully our last. I'm sure a lot of you share in that sentiment, and hopefully we can have you all back on campus as quickly as possible. I'm actually broadcasting live from the Fairfax campus right now in my office, just myself here on campus right now. So again, we're so happy to welcome you all. There's actually, I'm sure you're already being immersed in a little bit of life at Larchmont Fairfax, because there has been a lot of communication coming from the school already this week. You should have already received your teacher introduction letters. You should have also received a number of other pieces of information from our teachers, some of which we'll be talking more about today. Make sure that you're on.
Alex, if you could make sure and mute yourself, thank you.
Thank you. So you should have all received information about a distance learning orientation that all teachers will be hosting. We are also doing something new this year called virtual home visits. We'll be talking more about that to you in a little bit. You should have received your class's distance learning schedule. Some teachers have also shared with you a questionnaire to prepare in advance of that home visit. There are our kindergarten and first grade classes actually have virtual play dates scheduled for this Saturday. And over the summer, you should have heard from your host family.
No, it's taking up the whole.
Not heard from your host family. Please do be sure to let us know so we can make sure that they connect with you. But hopefully you've had a chance to review some of that information already. A little bit of a crash course into life at Larchmont Fairfax. But today we wanted to take some time to share with you more about the things that you need to know for a successful start to the year at Larchmont Fairfax. Some more general school information, including our mission, our model, and our vision. Information about parent involvement, information about academics, and more specifically what I'd like to call the anatomy of distance learning, since that's the mode that we're going to be starting with this year. So we're going to be covering all of that today. Here's the agenda in front of you. Make sure you're on mute if you are on right now. I do hear some background noise. I'm going to introduce a few people to you right now, some of whom are going to be speaking to you this morning. I am Merced Emrani. I believe I've met everyone already. I am the principal at Larchmont Fairfax. This is my 12th year with the school. Very happy to be here with you all. Today, my co-presenter is Andy Varon. Andy, would you like to say hello?
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Larchmont. I'm Andy. I'm the assistant principal. This is my 14th year at Larchmont Charter School, and I was figuring out last night as I was trying to go to sleep, this is my 43rd year in education. So, but I'm happy to be here with you all.
That deserves a round of applause right there, Andy. We're also very lucky to have with us today our executive director, the person at the helm of all 4 campuses of Larchmont, and that is Amy Held. You've heard from her in various communications over the summer. Amy is responsible for so many things. It's hard to enumerate right now, but of course, she leads the development of our budget, of our academics, legal and compliance issues. So Amy's going to be speaking with you a little bit today. We also have with us Tess Trillo. Tess is our Larchmont Fairfax office manager. This is the person that is there to assist you with general school questions. And Tess, would you like to say hello so everyone can put a face to the name?
Sure. Hello, everyone. Welcome, Larchmont families. Just extending a warm welcome. Most of you know me from all my email reminders for registration. So thanks for persevering with and putting up with me and a great job on turning in the paperwork. So if you have any questions, anything we can help with, please feel free to email me and the Larchmont team. Merced Andy and I will do our best to help you with any of your needs, and looking forward to meeting you all in person at the Fairfax campus.
Thank you, Tess. And we have a couple of other members of our extended Larchmont team, one of whom is the co-chair of LOOP, our Larchmont organization of parents, which heads up a lot of the efforts on volunteer coordination, events for families, fundraisers, and that is Erica Pittman. Erica, would you like to say a quick hello?
Hi everyone, welcome. We're excited to virtually meet all of you, and I'll give a longer description of Loop further in, right?
Yes, that's right, Erica, thank you. And then I'm not sure if we have Rich Rogers on yet, but Rich is—
We do.
Oh, wonderful. Rich is one of our other parent volunteer extraordinaires who helps to work a lot on our fundraising, which is of course one of the ways in which we're able to make all of this possible. So Rich, would you like to say a quick hello before?
Yeah, hi everyone, Rich Rogers. Welcome, excited to explain what fundraising is here at Larchmont, but welcome.
Thanks, Rich. Also wanted to mention, I sent this out in an email earlier. We have our back to school night on September 8th. That's where we're going to be talking a little bit more in depth about academics and instructional programs and things you can expect from the classroom in terms of those types of things. Today, the focus will be more on distance learning, obviously, since that's the mode that we're starting in. But I wanted to make sure to mention that, and more will be coming out on that shortly to you. We wanted to start with a quick inclusion activity. If you were actually here at the Fairfax campus right now, what we would normally do is have you turn to someone next to you to share with them why you chose Larchmont for your child. But we thought we would do that in the chat this time around. So if you see your chat on your screen, we'd love to have everyone go in and write their reason for why they chose Larchmont for their child. So I'm going to give everyone a few moments to do that.
I'll share them as they start coming in.
That would be wonderful, Andy, because I cannot see the chat in this mode.
Because you've made our kids better, to offer the best to my children. Heard it was the best charter in LA. We love the community and the school values.
Oh.
A focused and diverse school community. Please remember to mute yourself. That would help us. Heard great things about the school from colleagues and friends. Older sisters went to LCS and had a great time. Mentioned by a former high school schoolmate who loved the school. Culinary program, looping. Visited 10 schools around the area, liked the feel of the Fairfax campus the most. The garden, the community, diversity, progressive education, the style of learning, the food. Heard great things, got the best vibe from the teachers and principal on the tour, project-based learning, looping. A board member speaks the world of us, hopes the learning will be engaging. Once again, the garden, the healthy food, sibling, friends, edible schoolyard, warmth and involvement of the community, the breadth of the program, the lunch program, friends, referrals.
Excellent. Thank you, Andy.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Those are such wonderful things to hear. That's a great way to kick it off. And we're so happy to hear those wonderful things. I'm going to begin the formal presentation by handing it off to Amy Held. I just wanted to mention that as we go, please feel free to type in your questions in the chat. And we will either be sure to address them along the way or at the end. And then we can also open it up for questions that you'd like to share at the end. If you'd like to do that verbally, that's fine too. But feel free to use that chat because we'll go down that list and answer questions as we go and at the end. And so now I'm going to introduce Amy Held.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Larchmont. I see some familiar names and faces, so welcome, welcome. For some of you, you will very much be super familiar with everything I'm about to share. As Merceda mentioned, I'm the executive director. I get to work with all 4 of our campuses and our amazing leaders and teachers and staff members at all of those campuses and community members. We realize that this is a year like no other and a very unconventional way to join a community. But you are joining a community of incredibly warm and talented and thoughtful teachers and leaders. So you are in good hands. And I just want to share with you a little bit about kind of how our school came to be, the mission that drives us, and the model that kind of brings that mission to life. So you can kind of see here on the screen the timeline of how Larchmont came to be. And I think some of the key things that I want to share, because I think the mission really flows from here, is that this school was founded by parents. And it kind of grew out of a dream of parents just like you who were huddled together in a backyard not far away and had this dream of a school that would, you know, rival the best public and private schools out there that would fully reflect the rich diversity of our city and our world. And that would have a more inspired approach to teaching and learning, really engaging and tapping into kids' natural curiosity and engaging them with inquiry and hands-on, you know, project-based learning. And they wanted a school that would embrace parents as partners. And so thus was born Larchmont, and what began as a school of 120, you know, TK through 2nd grade students at what is now the Fairfax campus, has blossomed into a TK through 12th grade school across 4 different campuses with more than, you know, we're going to be going over 1,600 students this coming year. And we just graduated our 5th class of seniors in the spring, incredibly proud of them. 97% of them were accepted to fantastic colleges all over this state and all over the country. Including, I think it was actually a student who started at Fairfax and went all the way through, who just secured our first acceptance to Columbia University. And I think he may have gotten a full ride too. So really an impressive job that our students and our teachers and our families have done. So next slide, please.
Yes.
So, you know, all organizations have long mission statements and, you know, so we're not alone in that. But I think when you read our mission statement on the left side of this, you can really see how it ties directly into that founding story, right? That these parents who founded our school were really looking to have this intentionally diverse community and provide an exceptional public education. And they really had an eye on you know, cultivating in our students both creativity and academic excellence and having them learn with and from each other in this really unique model. And that second part of the mission is the other thing I really want to underscore, and I'll come back to in a couple of minutes, but it's really with this purpose of instilling in our students a dedication to improving the world. And so how does this mission come to life? It comes to life through our model, and you're going to hear a lot more about this later. And of course, what that's going to look like this year is going to be more unique than other years. But the vision for it remains the same. So it's really about ensuring that every single student is known so that we can build on, you know, their prior knowledge and experience. This is what drives us. This is our theory of learning, is constructivism. So we don't believe that kids are empty vessels or blank slates for us to pour information into, but rather that each and every one of us brings to each moment of our lives kind of the totality of our lived experience and knowledge up to that minute. And that it's by interacting with the world around us that we make connections to that prior knowledge and experience and construct new meaning and learn. So in order to do that and do that well, we really want to make sure our students are known. So you're going to hear about in the upper, you know, not in kindergarten, but in 1st second, third, and fourth, our students loop. And all throughout our school, we have small class sizes. In the upper grades, they loop with their counselors or their administrators. We also look to have longer periods of instruction so we can go deeper with students. And so there's fewer transitions and an opportunity for deeper relationships. Next, we really focus on having this richly diverse environment, because again, it's by interacting with that diversity that we're making, that we're constructing new meaning. And so that is both in the community of our, the peers and the staff members, but it's also in the program. So we don't believe that having, art and music and movement and cooking and gardening are just nice to have. For us, they're really essential. They're how we think kids learn. And lastly, that focus on inquiry and project-based learning, really helping our kids make connections across the curriculum and have those aha moments. Next slide, please. Thank you. So I'm really starting to date myself with this slide. But, for those of us who've been around a little while, you can really feel how the world has changed really dramatically. So this quote was taken from Thomas Friedman, and you can see we added, actually Merceda and Andy added at the end the Zoom piece. Zoom has taken on a whole new meaning in all of our lives. But really, the point of this is just to highlight that the world is changing really, really fast. And, all of us can find anything we want to know in our pockets, on our, in the phones on our pockets. So we don't need to be teaching kids how to just memorize and regurgitate information. They really need to know how to discern good information from bad information, how to problem solve, how to create. And they need to know how to adapt, which all of us are learning in these circumstances. They need to know how to communicate, how to collaborate. And that's really what they learn at Larchmont. It's really an education of the heart and the mind. Next slide, please. So as you can see, these different survival skills for the 21st century that are identified by both employers and universities as what graduates are going to need are exactly what they're getting in their time at Larchmont. Next slide, please. So I want to end really where I began, which is just underscoring that this school was founded by parents. And it's really the second half of that mission statement that I referenced earlier, which is with involvement of from our whole community. Our students, we instill in our students a dedication to improving the world they inhabit. So, this school, even in its virtual form, is the world that your kids are inhabiting this year. And so your involvement in it, giving of your time and your energy and your gifts and your resources, is the most powerful example of that mission in action for your kids. So you all are really the lifeblood of our school. And even though it can't be volunteering on campus this year, or at least during this time, there are still tons of other ways to get involved. So, and we really rely on it. It is the lifeblood of our school, and it's how we're able to have this mission and this model. So without further ado, I want to hand it over, I believe, to Erica Pittman to share with you a little bit about the Larchmont Organization of Parents.
Hi, everyone. So Loop is the Larchmont Organization of Parents, and it's, fairly similar to a PTA at other schools in that it is sort of the entity within which parents get involved in the school. One of the most important things at Larchmont, as Amy was talking about, is sort of volunteerism and being sort of a part of our community and a part of our school, and a part of your children's lives. Obviously, Larchmont has, Rich Rogers will talk a little bit more specifically about fundraising and the annual giving campaign, but Loop is really focused on community building. And while very often the idea of community building and fundraising can overlap, in the Loop piece, we're really trying to figure out how to bring families together and how to make them feel part of our community and included and involved. And as a result of that, it's always evolving. As our community and as our parent population changes, we are always looking for new ways to be more inclusive and make people feel more a part of things, and to be more aware of the ways in which the community plays a role in your life and your children's lives and all of those things. So Loop is the way to sort of find your way into the school, essentially. So if you're looking for ways to volunteer, if you're looking for ways to be involved, come to Loop meetings, speak to myself or Betsy Cavalier, who is my co-leader in Loop. We're also always looking for new people to sort of pass the torch to. I'll be at this campus for the foreseeable future, as I have 3 children, and it's only my oldest who's going into 4th grade. So I have about 12 more years here, but I would love to talk to anybody that would love to, get involved in a deeper way. And we're here to answer any questions that you might have. There's, obviously a learning curve when you come into any new community about, what volunteerism looks like and what community events, sort of what the norm of your environment looks like. And we just want it to be as accessible as possible and feel as inclusive as possible. So please feel free to come to me, email me, call me. All of my information is available. And, we just want you to feel good about the school. One of the things that really drew me to this school was the community, and it felt like a real extension of my family's values. And, obviously, particularly during this time and in a city like Los Angeles, it's important to be around like-minded people as much as possible, and to raise your children in that environment. So, we just want people to feel like they have a place at Larchmont, and just by virtue of being a Larchmont parent, you are a member of Loop. So, there's no joining required. And we're here to elucidate anything we can, basically. So any school events that you want to get involved in, if you come to Loop meetings, we're always talking about them. We're giving updates on what those events look like. And obviously this year it's a little bit different, and we'll, take a little bit more imagination for the community building piece. But, we're creative people, and, it's never stopped us before. So we're excited for ideas and involvement of any kind. So welcome, everybody.
Thank you so much, Erica. And I believe the first Loop meeting is going to be early in September. So we will let everyone know about that. And we'd love to have you all join us virtually for that. Thanks, Erica. I'm going to ask Rich Rogers to share a little bit with you.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. How you doing? Welcome to the family. My name is Rich Rogers. I have a 3rd grader named Xander on the Fairfax campus, and a 6th grader named Jordan on the Selma campus, who started here 6 years ago. So this is our 7th year as part of the community. Let's just take a pause here. Congrats on winning the lottery. We love Larchmont. I feel like, my new friends here, you're going to love it as well. Our kids feel safe and protected, and they're smarter and better for being part of this community. And I say community very thoughtfully, because they now know what that word means. They feel part of this. And it's just it's been an inspired thing as a parent to watch their growth and to feel so protected in a learning environment. I help out with the annual giving drive, which is our largest and incredibly important family organized fundraising platform of the year. This is obviously a different type of year, but I wanted to take a moment to explain what annual fund has looked like in the past. We raise close to $2 million a year across our 4 campuses. We strive to have 100% of our families contribute, and the Fairfax campus has reached that goal 6 years running. The money raised helps us run the school in the way we want to. So what does that mean? It means smaller class sizes. It means a robust and thoughtful curriculum that includes music, art, gardening, improv, PE, a school that runs through 12th grade. And most importantly for me and our family is, a truly incredibly diverse community where everyone is treated with respect and as equals. That transitions me to the awkward part. You'll be hearing from a parent-led team asking you to give starting in September, October. You'll be asked to give meaningfully. That means something different for everyone. An example of that is for some families, you may have gone to a private school had you not gotten into Larchmont. We ask you to consider giving half of what you may have paid for your child at that school. I mean, that's a pretty great deal. For some of us, $200 is a huge burden to your family, and we certainly don't want that. So we ask, please give meaningfully, give what you can. This is all 100% anonymous. Again, it's parent-led. We have a home office that sees the money come in, and then they just alert the call team, including myself, that someone has given. So I've never seen who gives a lot, a little, or whatever. I just know once you've given. I know this is a stressful time. It's been a stressful time for everyone. We normally have events spread out over the year where we're able to raise money. This year, gatherings are looking unlikely. So this is probably our only fundraising opportunity of the year. So I'll close by saying, when you get that call, please consider giving meaningfully. We're annoying. We don't want to be annoying, but this is important. And so if you don't want that, give early, and we will leave you alone. And then one last thing is, we're always looking for volunteers. So I'll send out my email address to the chat, the text chain here. And please just get in contact with me. We try to have at least one person per class, so that we're covered that way. So thank you, I appreciate it. And again, welcome to Larchmont.
Thank you so much, Rich. I've never heard you described as annoying, so
thank you.
They're always very pleasant. Thank you. So now we want to get into the more micro level details of life at Larchmont Fairfax, general information. As you might expect, some of this is obviously going to look a little different this year, but back on August 5th, we sent an email to you. I believe it was titled Important Back to School Information from Larchmont Fairfax. I just wanted to direct your attention to that because there are some documents in that email that are very important for you to read if you haven't had a chance to do so yet. So I'm just going to speak about each of those momentarily. One of them is the Larchmont ABCs, our school calendar, our communication policies, information about our edible schoolyard program, and about Loop that you just heard a little bit about. The Larchmont ABCs, this is the cover sheet that you should have seen if you had clicked on it in your email. It's, I believe, a 15-page document that highlights some of the key things that you need to know about our school for a successful year. And I've listed some of them in the left-hand column. Obviously, some of them, as I said, are going to look different this year, but I would still love for everyone to read through it carefully, because once you do return to school, all of these will apply and are important to know about, including how you notify the school about absences, you know, when we're ready to resume an after-school program, what that looks like, carpool information. The contact information is actually essentially the same, so you want to make sure to look through that carefully so you know who to contact for what, including Tess, our office manager, our administration, our teachers. Information about communication. So every year, multiple times a year, actually, we have a parent survey that goes out, a satisfaction survey. And one of the things we get rated the highest on is communication. We have a lot of communication that comes from the school. Sometimes it might actually be a little bit too much for some, but that includes things like our website. And I'm so happy to say you're some of the first people to hear this. We have a brand new website that's being rolled out in the next week or so. That's just phenomenal. That actually houses this document, and all of the others I'm referencing are all there for you in one place. So if you can't locate something in an email, you can check the website and it's all there. But in terms of communication, we've got the website. I send a weekly email that I encourage you all to read, because all the information about important dates and events are all in there. We have LCS updates that come from our network office. That's essentially the equivalent of our district office, with school-wide information that you want to make sure to read. We have teacher emails that go out. When you actually come back to school, there's a homework folder that every student takes home and brings back, as well as a communication folder with paper copies of everything. So lots and lots of communication. Those are just a few examples, but I'd love for you to read through that. There's information about our grading policies, independent study, which is essentially a system that we use when a child is absent to be able to provide them with the work and also ensure that the school doesn't lose the funding for the day, because we lose a considerable amount of money every time a child is absent. So I'd love for you to read that, a little bit about our healthy food choices for when children are back at school, homework and lunch information. School Sing, this is our big weekly assembly that happens. It's amazing. It's one of the things parents always rave about. When we're actually back on campus, parents are invited to this every week. It's led by our wonderful music teacher, Jenny, but we're actually going to be doing it on Instagram Live this year on Wednesdays. So you'll be getting information about that, but we'd love for you to join that virtually until we can make it back to school. There's visitor information policies, volunteer policies, and then I mentioned the website already, which is really, really phenomenal and will house all of this information for you. So when you get a moment to look at those 15 pages, please do so. That's probably one of our key documents. The other is that there was a link to a communications document. This tells you what parents can expect from teachers and what teachers can expect from parents. And it gives you some information about how to access teachers. It gives you information about the different types of communication that teachers send out. It also talks a little bit about when teachers are available and how quickly they respond to emails. We want to make sure we're, of course, mindful of our teachers' professional time and their personal time. So it talks about the window of 24 to 48 hours for responses. So please do look at that. It also has some good tips on the backside for how to navigate certain situations where there might be some communication challenges with another parent, for example, or some concerns about a student at the school. And it sort of guides you through how to handle those situations and who to go to for help. So we'd love for you to look through that as well. There was also a link to our school calendar, important document. This is also available on the website, both now and in our new website. Tells you important dates for holidays, but also parent conferences, when we have minimum days, when there are non-school days, because sometimes our teachers have professional development on certain days. So that is an important document. And then there were additional documents on Loop and Edible Schoolyard, as I mentioned. So please do look through that email when you have a moment for this general school information, which is essentially pre-COVID and post-COVID once we can get back to school. And now we want to talk a little bit more about the anatomy and the specifics of distance learning, since we are starting in distance learning mode. And these are some of the things we're going to be covering in our discussion. We're going to talk a little bit about the roadmap to reopening and our different phases that lead up to full reopening. We're going to talk about the guiding principles of distance learning and how we've structured it. We're going to talk about the first day and first week schedule, which is a little bit different than the normal schedule. We're calling it the Larchmont lead up to 2021. We'll talk about schedules, learning platforms, teacher communication, grab-and-go lunches, technology and student supplies, and then community engagement during distance learning. Andy, would you like to start with the roadmap to reopening?
I would, and I apologize in advance if my dog decides to go on a barking spree. She's usually pretty good, but if someone walks by. So, this is interesting to be having this roadmap to reopening. As I mentioned earlier, this is my 43rd year, and I've never encountered anything like this, as none of us have. But as you know, we're in phase 1 right now, where we are opening in full distance learning. And we will be in phase 1 until the public health department metrics allow us to transition to a hybrid phase. And in this hybrid phase, we're going to be inviting our TK through 2nd grade students to come onto campus 2 half days a week to transition into what life on campus will be like, to get to meet their teachers in person and to get used to what school will be. And our older students, our 3rd and 4th grade students, will probably be coming in once a week for half a day. It doesn't say that, Merced. Is that no longer happening?
That they will be coming to campus, Andy.
Yeah. So our 3rd and 4th grade students will be coming to campus for a half a day per week. And we imagine that this is just going to be a short phase, just to allow everybody time for the transition. I do have to say, when the governor announces and the LA County announces that we can transition to some online learning, it's not going to happen overnight. That we will need a little bit of time as well after that to transition from our full distance learning to our hybrid phase. Granted that this goes well and that there's not an outbreak of cases and we're allowed to stay open, we'll then move into phase 3, which is where our TK through 2nd grade students will be on campus 4 half days a week. They'll basically be on probably an 8:30 to 11:30 schedule or a 12:30 to 3:30 schedule. And we all have to work to arrange it so that carpools can come at the same time, siblings can come at the same time. And they will be doing a large portion of their instruction at school, but in order to get the required number of hours, the 1st and 2nd graders will also have some asynchronous learning to do at home, either in the morning or the afternoon when they're not at school. 3rd through 12th grade will continue with their distance learning program. However, they will be on campus for a couple of hours once a week in order to allow for the socializing that we know is so critically important to them. And that will be done in cohorts so that we can also maintain our distance learning, our distance requirements. And then hopefully one day we'll reach phase 4 where things will go back to normal. You know, I know that's the day we're all waiting for, is that things will return back to normal. Knowing that at any point, if there's another outbreak of COVID-19, either in LA County or even on our campus, we will have to phase back into phase 3 or phase 1, depending on the conditions. Marcetta, you can add to that if you'd like.
Thank you so much, Andy. No, that's wonderful. I just wanted to mention, because I had received some questions about the various options that families could choose from. We did send out a communication about this some time ago, but you were asked to fill out a preference for an option A, B, or C, which was full distance learning, hybrid mode, or hub. And I just wanted to mention that if you chose option A and you feel like your child is not able to return back to campus even when we enter phase 2 or phase 3, and you want to stay in distance learning mode, that is of course possible. We'll be sending out communication about what that will entail, which might include, you know, periodic check-ins with staff and so on and so forth. If you chose the hybrid model, of course, that option B is possible. That will be probably, based on the numbers that we're seeing from families, the option that most families will choose. If you chose option C, that is something that the school is going to be looking at on an individual basis, based on family needs, based on priorities. Not everyone is guaranteed a hub spot, which means that the student gets to come to campus probably earlier than other students and for greater frequency. It's reserved for our highest need students, but we will be looking at that on a case-by-case basis. And when we're ready to enter into phase 2, we'll be sending out communication about who is accepted into option C. Wanted to talk a little bit about the guiding principles of distance learning. And this was sent in an email as well, but I wanted to make sure that we reviewed it so everyone was aware about how we've really structured our distance learning 2.0 with many changes from the spring, now that we've sort of had to become experts on this. The first is school day content. I want you to know that just as if the child were in regular brick and mortar schooling, they will still be receiving the same instructional content that they would have otherwise received. And by that, I mean, they will still be receiving their English language arts instruction in reading and writing, their math instruction, their social studies and science instruction, their enrichment offerings, their social emotional learning opportunities. So we've really strived to include that. And if you've looked over your teacher's schedule, you will see that all of those areas are incorporated into the week. And we'll talk more about the schedules in just a moment. As part of distance learning, Larchmont has always been known about the whole child, meaning that it's not just academics, it's also about social development, emotional development, their personal success. And so we've tried to incorporate as much of that as we can into distance learning mode. So you'll see that your child actually starts the day in what we call morning meeting. And morning meeting, while it can sometimes be used for academic purposes, I would say the primary purpose is to create connections between the teacher and the class and between the students in the class. So you'll see a lot of community building activities, games, reflection opportunities, opportunities for children to share. That's one of the ways that we're addressing the whole child. You'll see fun things happening for the kids, like spirit days, even while we're in virtual learning mode. You'll see, the special school events like our school sing continuing. Last spring, Andy and I did a virtual lunch for students periodically so that they could continue to have those connections with us. And teachers did those types of things as well. So I just want you to know that that's at the forefront for us, is just making sure that there's this consideration of the whole child, especially at a time where they're separated from friends. And we know that this is difficult and stressful for children too. Change from the spring is that we've increased the amount of live instruction. So if you've looked at your teacher's schedule, you will see that there is a big chunk of the time which is synchronous or live with the teacher on Zoom. There are some times that are asynchronous as well, because every grade level has a certain number of instructional minutes that they need to meet. That's determined by the California Department of Education. But we have increased the amount of live instruction just because, of course, we want to be able to give our kids that opportunity to have those skills and concrete concepts taught to them by their teacher. Also, we heard a lot from parents in the spring, of course, that it was hard to manage being the classroom teacher and the teacher at home. And so a lot of this will be managed now by the teacher via live instruction, but there will be a balance of on and off screen time. You'll see that in the schedule. You'll see that there will be screen breaks. You will see that on Wednesdays, they will not primarily be having live instruction. They'll be offline for the most part. They'll still be doing work on Wednesdays because every day has a certain number of minutes that have to be met, but they will have that break at midweek, which all of the professional development we've taken for children tells us is very important for distance learning, especially for young children. You'll also see that the way that we've structured it, there will be times where the teacher will be teaching on Zoom, and then the teacher will stay on, but the kids will actually be working in their workbooks or in their journal books. And so they're not so engaged with the screen, they're having time to work, but the teacher is there available to help them. It's called semi-synchronous learning. So the schedule has been structured that way. We've also made sure to embed and spread out our live enrichment classes throughout the week so that kids will still get their music, their edible schoolyard, which is gardening and cooking, their art, their improv, their PE, all of those wonderful offerings that are pretty unique to our school. One thing that's a change from the spring is that we're going to be doing more multimodal learning. And what I mean by that is there will actually be some, at least one, but likely more than one, pickup days with student kits that we would like for you to come pick up so that students can actually have their workbooks, their reading books, their manipulatives like their alphabet cards or their dice or whatever it is that they might need that will help them with physical learning, because that is usually the style that we employ. We're going to be utilizing that more this year, and that will mean less screen time for kids, which we think will be helpful. And then another big change from the spring is more streamlined communication from our teachers. We'll talk about what that means in just a moment. And of course, all classes have set a distance learning orientation. and virtual home visits. And during those virtual home visits, they're going to be talking with you about a lot of things about how to make the year successful specifically for your child. Andy.
Hi again. So the first day, next Wednesday, is going to be a little bit different this year because it's basically going to start with school for parents. And as Merceda just mentioned, each teacher is setting up a distance learning parent orientation where they are going to go over their classroom expectations, their classroom schedules, and information that you as the parent will need to be able to support your child in their learning. And as you can see, we have the times for the different meetings up here, and you should have received an email from your classroom teacher with this information as well. And if you didn't, either let Tess know, Mary Tess at marytess.trillo@larchmontcharter.org. I think Tess is going to post her email in the chat room. On the meetings will probably go about an hour. If you have multiple meetings you need to go to and you need to check out of one a little bit early, the teachers understand that. The other thing that's happening that day is that virtual home visits will begin, and the virtual home visits are a chance for the teacher to meet with you individually to find out, kind of to meet you, to meet your child, to learn a little bit more about your family situation and how they can best support you in this journey we're all going to begin on. You may be wondering what's your child going to be doing this day, and the teachers will be sending out an email the day or two before school begins with some learning opportunities for your child. And in TK and kindergarten, it might be, draw a picture of yourself, draw a picture of, your favorite toy to play with. In the older grades, it might be a little more of a journaling activity for the kids. You can move to the next one, Merceda. So this is what the schedule is going to look like. On the first day, I just explained to you. On Thursday, Friday, and Monday, classes will be as normal from 8:30 to noon, our Zoom classes. All classes start at 8:30 a.m. with a Zoom meeting. Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. That will never change. And so that's an easy thing to remember. The teachers will then be doing some of their basic teaching until noon and assign kids some work to do in their asynchronous time, which is their offline time, for the rest of the day to free up time for the teachers to be meeting some more with the parents. And one of the reasons that the teachers assign this asynchronous learning is we're required by the state to provide so many minutes of instruction per day. For TKK, it's 180 minutes. For 1, 2, and 3, it's 230 minutes. And for 4th grade, it's 240 minutes. And so if we don't have enough time in our day through our Zoom time, then that work will be provided for the students asynchronously so that we're offering the minutes that we're required to do by the state. On Tuesday, your normal schedule will begin, and you will know from your virtual parent meeting, from your parent distance learning orientation, and from the schedule on the website that all the teachers are developing, what a normal day looks like, because that changes from grade to grade.
Thank you, Andy. And I was just going to mention, you don't need to worry about memorizing this. This will be sent out in an update from the school as well. So everyone has that modified schedule for the first week.
And probably multiple times from multiple sources.
I wanted to talk a little bit more specifically about class schedules. Your teacher, when they do their distance learning orientation, will actually go over your specific classroom schedule very much in detail, but I wanted to point out a few things. This is a sample schedule from first and
Second grade.
second grade.
Second grade.
Second grade. This will not apply to every grade. Every grade schedule looks a little bit different, obviously, so that it's more developmentally appropriate for them and for the age. But just wanted to mention some of the key features really that you will see the through line in all the schedules for, and that is, I mentioned to you, the day always starts with a morning meeting. That's a time for the teacher to connect with the classroom and for the kids to connect with each other. We even have morning meeting on Wednesdays. So even though that is considered essentially for the most part an offline day where students are doing their work at home asynchronously, we did feel it was important to keep that routine for students and keep that connection for them, and actually start the day by talking to them about what they're going to be working on Wednesdays asynchronously, so it's very clear for them. So even on Wednesdays, we would ask that they log on in their morning for morning meeting. We're also going to have our school sing, as I mentioned, now on Wednesday mornings virtually. So we'd love to have you join on Instagram Live. A couple of other features you'll notice is that there are different groups in math and in reading in particular. And the reason we've done that is because we know, based on experience and based on research, that for young children, especially doing virtual learning, it works much more successfully if they're in small groups or half groups, as opposed to managing a Zoom of 24 students on. So to the extent possible, we've divided students into groups. Your teacher will communicate to you which group your child will be in. So listen for that. That will be coming from them, and they'll talk more about that during distance learning orientation. Same thing for reading, very important for them to be in small groups to the extent possible. You'll also notice that if a child is in group A for math, during the other time, when they're not in their group, while group B is on, they'll be working offline. They might be working in their math workbook or doing some other type of activity, but they'll get a little screen break before they hop onto reading. So we've tried to embed as many breaks as possible, including snack breaks, lunch and recess, of course. And then you'll see the enrichments that are sprinkled throughout. And those will include the music and the art and PE and gardening and cooking and improv. And your teacher will share all of that with you as well.
So these are some of the learning platforms that the teachers will be using. Of course, the biggest one is Zoom, which you're all using now, and we're all going to be experts with Zoom by the time this ends. Your children will be attending their live classes on Zoom. One of the first things you can do is teach them how to mute themselves and how to stop and start their video, although we are going to ask that when kids are in a class that their video is on so that we can see them, so that we can better engage with them. And we're also going to want for their name to be on the screen. That will help the teachers in working with the kids. So a couple of the things that you can practice with your kids over the next couple of weeks are how to use Zoom, how to mute themselves, how to change, if they need to change the name to their own name, which you just basically do. You can click on your name and it offers you the opportunity to rename yourselves, but we want them to rename themselves with their own name. Seesaw is a learning platform that we use to post lessons and to offer sometimes the content of the lessons, the lesson itself. It's a way for kids to post responses. Often we'll ask the parents to take a picture of the kids' work and post it on Seesaw so that the students can see it. Google Docs is another platform like that where work can be shared back and forth as well as communication. Raz Kids and Moby Max are not learning platforms, but they're rather instructional tools. Raz Kids is a reading program that we use quite extensively, and your child might be asked to log on to RazKids and pick a book and read. That's, a really strong possibility. Is just, especially in their asynchronous time. Go on to RazKids, pick a book and read. Moby Max is a program that has reading, math, spelling, social studies, science, and we will be using it to also assign asynchronous work for kids. I know it sounds weird, it's asynchronous work, but they're still on the computer. But that won't be the only asynchronous work they get. Pear Deck is a new tool that we're just experimenting with, which allows, like if we had used Pear Deck for this presentation, it would allow for back and forth engagement. There's questions posted that the kids can just answer by sliding a bar or circling their answer or posting a dot, or sometimes typing, but we know with kindergarten, typing is not, even first grade typing is not easy to do right now, but it's a very interactive platform. And what we're trying to look for is ways to really make sure that we keep your students engaged when they're sitting there in the room with us, because we know that's not an easy thing for a 5 or 6 year old to do. It's not easy for me. I've noticed this past week, as we've been in meetings all week, that I have a hard time staying engaged and have to really remind myself that this is my job right now. And as we said earlier, teachers are developing their own websites, which are different from the school website. However, once the school website is up and running, you will be able to access the teacher websites from the school website. The teachers will also give you a link to their individual websites. And on the teachers' individual websites, that's where they'll be posting their schedule. That's where they'll be posting the lessons that they're teaching, the links to the different Zoom sites that you'll need for either their child's class or for the enrichment classes. There will be some detail in their lesson plans so that you will know more than today it's math. But they'll be posting today it's math, and today we're going to be working on learning to tell time to the nearest 15, to the nearest quarter hour. So it's going to be a very important resource for parents, and the main form of communication from the teachers to you, although I think that knowing our teachers, you'll still be getting emails as well. They really like sending out those emails, so be prepared.
I was actually going to say the same thing, Andy. Sometimes there might be, last minute changes to assignments or things of that nature, or a link might not be working. So they may still be emailing you here and there, but the feedback last year was just, if possible, to have one main site where everything was stored, especially if families have children in multiple classrooms where they could easily access it. And that was our goal with these teacher pages on the website. So again, the teachers will share more about that during their own specific distance learning orientation sessions. Few other pieces of general information. One of the key things about Larchmont is our Edible Schoolyard program, which if you've been on a tour, you've heard us talk about. That includes the garden classes, our science curriculum, so the biological sciences as it relates to garden, our cooking classes, and obviously our students are not here to experience that lunch in the normal way, but we will be offering the grab and go service for students. We're going to be sending out very detailed information about that. A sign up will be required in advance. There will likely be a date each week where you can pick up 5 meals for your child, meals that will last, that will sustain during the week. But it will be lunch from our very own Fairfax kitchen still, although perhaps slightly modified than what you would normally see because it needs to withstand the time during the week. So that will be available. And of course, if you qualify for free or reduced lunch, the price is different. So make sure you've submitted your application for free or reduced lunch if you haven't. If you haven't, or if you need it, you can contact our main office for that. Tomorrow is our big technology drive-through. For the Fairfax campus, we sent out 2 forms that you need to fill out in advance, but we will be providing a Chromebook for any student that needs it, that needs access to it and needs to borrow it for distance learning. You'll also get information soon that will also be housed on the website. If something happens to your Chromebook and you need a repair, there's actually a ticket that you can fill out, a repair ticket, and our IT team works on those things. So I wanted to just remind everyone about that taking place tomorrow. And then the student kits, and we alluded to this already, but there will be a drive-through at some point in August. We'll send out the date. Right now, we're waiting to get more information from the publishers of our workbooks and things about when they'll arrive. But we're going to put together a whole kit for the kids. And that will include workbooks. It might include, like I mentioned, alphabet cards or number cards or readers. Our music teacher might actually be sending some supplies home. Our PE coach may be sending things home that the students will need for PE classes. And so we'll have a drive-through pickup day at least once, but very likely periodically, to change things out and provide you with those things. Again, more information coming on lunch very, very shortly.
Can I add something, Merceda?
Of course.
I know that in your emails you have received a list from the teachers of things that they're hoping that you can provide for their students to work at home. And I just want to reiterate, I guess is the word, that if you are unable to provide those supplies, please, please, please let us know. Do not be embarrassed to reach out for help. We don't want any child to be at a disadvantage because they don't have the learning tools that they need.
Thank you, Andy. Very important point.
So there are, even in these strange times, opportunities for us to engage, such as sort of this one right now, where we did a little bit of engaging through our sharing why we're at Larchmont. Of course, there's our Wednesday morning school sing now on Instagram. We will be having some parent coffees on Zoom. Parent coffees are sort of a small parent education opportunity. Merced and I choose a subject that we think parents would be interested in learning more about. We've done them on our writers workshop, our math program, our social emotional learning program. This year we'll probably do one on some of the technology tools that we're using in the class. If you have any suggestions, we'd happily welcome them. Virtual breakfasts, I believe there's one the first Friday of school, and like the 21st, a virtual breakfast. If we were live, we would be having a parent breakfast on campus. But it's just, you know, come on to Zoom, bring your coffee and your donuts, and the Zoom screen will be open and you can visit. As Erica talked about the Loop meetings, our room parents will be organizing some class socials on Zoom. We're hoping your host families reached out to you. You can set up virtual play dates with other kids in your class. And on Saturday, both kindergarten and first grade are offering virtual play dates so that students will get another opportunity to meet their teachers and some of their classmates before school begins. And then, as Merceda also mentioned earlier, we occasionally host a lunch bunch where we invite the students to come have lunch with us.
Thank you. And one noteworthy thing to mention that's also an engagement opportunity that we wanted to specifically highlight is Site Council. Site Council is an advisory body that meets with Andy and I and also Amy periodically, and essentially gives feedback and their words of wisdom about various school issues, be it budgetary issues, if we're making decisions about schedules. You know, over the course of the summer, we reached out to site council to run by them our distance learning plan in advance of releasing it officially. In previous years, we've talked to them about changes in grade configuration, facilities issues, all sorts of things, enrollment. So we meet once a month at least, sometimes a little bit more if there's a specific issue that comes up. And the site council representatives are each assigned a class with whom they communicate with. There is a form that you need to fill out to nominate yourself or to nominate someone else if you know a parent that you think would be great for it. But that's going to be coming out, and we wanted you to be aware of that. If you're looking for a way to be involved in the school, that's really a great way to do it. And our site council has always been very, very helpful to us. And at this point, we are going to open it up for all the questions that you might have about any of the information that's been presented, or just any burning questions that you might have otherwise, even about information that wasn't presented.
Marcetta, can you turn off the screen share at this point?
Yes.
And I was able to answer the questions that came through the chat room. So,
Wonderful. And you're welcome to unmute and share questions as well.
Main difference between Site Council and Loop. Loop is our organization for helping out with activities, kind of like the PTA, where you often will join a committee and, you know, help run our various fundraisers or some of our different engagement activities. Site Council, Marcetta, you're better at explaining Site Council.
Well, a site council member is actually an elected member. So typically we would have these nomination forms that would be filled out. We would put it out to the community to be able to elect their site council representatives. So that's one thing that's a bit different. But again, it's more of an advisory body. They won't necessarily take the hands-on role in organizing our Harvest Festival, like our Harvest Festival committee would do with Loop, but they will meet as a small group with administration at least once a month to just give their input and advice on various school topics that come up.
There's a question if there's a way to get a recording of this meeting. I know that for sure the PowerPoint will be shared when Marcetta sends out her weekly message. I'm not sure that we have the
Actually, Andy, it is recording because we're on Zoom Pro right now. So it is recording and I'm happy to share that.
Oh, okay. I don't have the technological skills to do that.
I will figure it out. I haven't shared a recording yet, but I promise to do that.
The policy regarding absences while we were in distance learning. The first thing is to notify TESS and notify your school teacher. And hopefully, because all the lessons are being posted online, that your child will still be able to do some of the school work. And if they are able to do some of the school work, then they will actually not be marked as absent. And if they're too sick to do the school work, then they will have an excused absence because you've notified TESS. But notify TESS and notify your school teacher. Will we be able to get a class list of the other students in each class?
Yes, great question. I think that'll be especially important this year in terms of maintaining the community between the students. And we can do that. We do have to get a publicity release, which includes, you know, the okay from families to share that information with other families. And we will do that just like we do in normal years. And we typically publish a directory, which again, we will do just like we do in normal years. It'll be especially important this year. So yes, we just have to make sure to get the okay from everyone, and then we can do that.
Are there any other questions? Will kids be interacting with other classes? Not much in this distance learning, although 3rd and 4th grade sometimes set up a lunch bunch for their 2 classes to have lunch together. I'm not sure what the kindergarten and lower grade teachers have planned in that matter. So I'm going to probably say no. Bailey, I don't know about fourth grade buddies. That's a good question. We'll have to bring that up to the teachers.
We did
I'll write
have
myself a note.
one group that did fourth grade buddies. So for those of you that don't know, our kindergartners and our TK students are usually paired with a fourth grade buddy. They love that. When they're normally at school, they get to meet about once a month or so to do a special activity together. It's one of the highlights that the kids mention at the end of the year. So we'll see if we can facilitate that somehow this year, if there's a good way to do it virtually.
Anything else? You can raise your hand. You don't have to write it in the chat. Or you could even just call out, just introduce yourself. Is my child expected to Zoom? Yes. That's their morning meeting will be on Zoom, and their lessons will be taught on Zoom, the majority of them. So the answer to that is yes.
Just a reminder, make sure you look at all the information that came from your teachers this week. Very important, because you'll want to sign up for the virtual home visit, and definitely don't miss the distance orientation that each teacher is doing, because that will be the most specific information for each class. So I just want to make sure to alert everyone to that. And then there will be a lot more coming from us as well about all of the things that we've just talked about.
I have a question about the edible garden, or the edible garden and cooking class. So will they bring, a camera out to the garden outside and talk, like, is that how they're going to conduct the classes, or would the kids go on campus, or I guess I'm just a little bit confused on how that class would work.
Good question. So for now, because we're not permitted to have kids on campus, that will also be done virtually. So yes, Corey, we have an amazing gardening and cooking teacher. She's working with the gardening and cooking teachers right now from our other campuses to design the program. And yes, that's going to oftentimes mean her coming to you live from the garden. Other times it might be that she might not be in the garden, but she might be reading a book about something that has to do with gardening to the students, and then talking about something related to gardening. And we're talking right now about how to facilitate the cooking. That's a little bit challenging, as you might imagine, because not everyone's going to have the necessary ingredients at home, though there are ways to do it with sort of basic things that most people would have at home. But again, it's going to look a little different, obviously, than what it normally would look like. But we are working on that right now.
I'm so sorry. This is Vania. So the question I had about the Zoom thing is, my daughter, she gets really tired of being in front, and from 8:30 to noon is a very long time to kind of go back and forth. And so I guess my question is, if that's something that she just cannot sit down for and do, is there a way we could just turn in the work at times, or do you know what I mean? I can't force her, and I've tried many times, and I think that's a lot of other families that I know. And so I'm just a little nervous about that part.
Well, I'd start, Vania, by saying a couple of things. So the way that we design the schedules is that in each block, for example, the reading block, the teacher is going to start by doing a brief, what we call mini lesson. That's the portion that you all might consider a lecture part, what we would think of as the lecture. And for little kids, that's usually about 5 to 10 minutes. They can't really sustain more than that. So they're going to do that part, but you'll see that block is actually 30 minutes long. So they're not going to be sitting there in front of the Zoom screen teaching to the students for 30 minutes, because that's not even normally what we would do in the classroom. It's just not appropriate for students of elementary level. So they're going to have that brief period of instruction, after which the students could go offline to do their work in their workbook or their reading or whatever it might be, but the teacher will stay on Zoom and be available. either whole group or in a small group, and then their aide might be with another small group. So I would encourage people to give it a try. I would like for everyone to at least give it a try, because I think there are ways to make it work. So if they can at least be there for that teacher instruction portion, and then they can go off and do what they need to do and then log back on for the teacher instruction portion. I think that's one way to work around it. And the other thing is, it's so important for them to have their community right now, to have their kid friends, and to be able to be connected in that way. So even if there's a way to make it work for a period of time, I think that would be really, really helpful for the kids to keep our community together, to keep our campus together. So important right now, maybe even more so than the academics. So I would give those things a try. And if it's not working, that's when you want to reach out to your teacher to really talk to them specifically about how to make it work. Because we did have cases like that in the spring, and on an individual basis, we were able to find ways to make it work.
Okay, thank you.
Merceda, there's a question of what kind of parental guidance do you think will be needed for the TK children while on Zoom?
That's a good question.
From a working parent.
Well,
I was starting to say that we recognize that this is difficult for working parents.
Especially for TK and kindergarten.
Yeah,
that's really unique.
Unfortunately, I mean,
we've tried. I guess what I would say to that is we've really, really tried as much as we can to make it as independent as possible. So the teachers are taking more of a load this time around, obviously, by offering more live instruction and really guiding
in smaller groups. And even in those smaller groups, the teachers have an instructional aide, or in 1st through 4th grade, a lot of teacher support, so that even if it's a group of 12, this instructional aid or support can take the kids that really need more direct instruction and someone just to help them stay engaged into a breakout room where they can work with them as a smaller group. So we're really addressing that every way we know how. And, you know, in a month, we might need to revisit things. Right. You know, we don't know.
And an important point also, Andy mentioned the instructional aid. So, you know, our kindergarten classes each have a dedicated instructional aid that will be in the room with them in the Zoom, and we'll take small groups in breakout rooms. But even in our other grade levels, we are very strategically looking at spreading out our other, like, extra teachers, if you will, our enrichment teachers, our academic specialists. We have 2 extra credentialed teachers who normally take reading and math groups, who are going to be all distributed across the classrooms, so that to the extent possible, there's another adult there to be able to facilitate these small groups and break the kids up as much as possible for higher engagement. But I have to go back to, if you were at our distance learning orientation earlier in the summer, it's still going to require some level of parent guidance and involvement, especially for TK and kinder, because they're going to need support with logging on. And 1st grade, right? Our 2nd and 3rd and 4th are pretty technologically savvy, and they can actually manage a lot themselves. But it will still require some parent support or some adult support, whoever is available, for getting them logged on and helping to navigate the schedule.
Anything else? Well, we wish we could be doing this with you in a room on campus in person.
Absolutely, but we're all in this together. I know it's a hard time. I'm a parent. I believe me, I understand. I know how difficult it is, but we're doing our very best to make the best out of a difficult situation, and we're all in this together. And again, reach out to us at any point. You know, there may be bumps along the way. It's may not be easy. Some parts of the schedule may be a little challenging. Reach out to your teachers, reach out to us. We're here to help you, and we're available for that. So, and again, just please read the emails carefully. A lot of key information there. I can't stress that enough. And the website is going to be a main source of information for you. So that's going to be launched very soon. But we thank you all. We can't wait to be together in person. But in the meantime, we'll make do.
Have a great day.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day, and we'll be in touch soon.